Alright, on today's notes, we are looking at what is an inequality. So when we talk about an inequality says that two values are not equal. Now notice, what are the 5 types of inequality symbols we will deal with? Well, the 5 most used algebraic inequality symbols are less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and not equal. So these are the symbols that you'll see most of the time. Now, here in this class, for what we're doing today, we're really only going to be using less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or we'll be saying that it is an equation. And if it is an equation, we will be using an equal sign. So for this activity, you will use one of these 5 symbols that I've circled. So let's take a look at the first one and see what we're going to do today. On the first one, I got, how do I write an equation with variables on both sides from a word problem? So notice I have 3 steps, and we need to make sure we follow all 3 of these steps, and we'll be able to. Step 1 is we box all numbers, variables, and equations. So all numbers, variables, and equations. And so I'm just going to look through this, and anything that's a number or a variable or an equation, I'm going to box it. So it takes Sophia 4 minutes. So I'm going to box that number, 4 minutes, for each balloon animal, and 10 minutes to set up. It takes Ben 3 minutes for each balloon animal, and 12 minutes to set up. At the end of the day, Ben and Sophia made the same amount of balloon animals. Write an equation that represents the situation. Alright, well, we did step 1. We boxed all numbers, and we didn't have any variables. We didn't have any equations. Now notice on here, the other thing it said was to underline keywords. Well, there were some keywords in there. I'm going to go back through and look at that specifically. So when it talked about taking Sophia, right, I'm going to underline that's who it belongs to, 4 minutes. And it says for each balloon, that's a keyword, animal, and 10 minutes to set up. That's another keyword. It takes Ben 3 minutes for each balloon, animal, and 12 minutes to set up. At the end of the day, Ben and Sophia made the same amount. That's my equal sign. When it says the same, then we know it's going to be an equation, and we're going to put an equal sign. Now it does say write an equation, so we knew it was going to use an equal sign, but that word the same means we use an equal sign. So that's done. My numbers, I'm just going to write them over here, were 4 and 10, and that was for Sophia. And it was 4 minutes, right? And then we had on the other one, what we had was 3 and 12, so 3 minutes for each. And then it said 12 minutes to set up, and that was for Ben. So I'm just making myself some notes as we're going through it. Step 2 says create the equation using the names or persons of the object. Okay, well, the persons were Sophia and Ben, so we're going to make an equation with their name. Sophia is equal to Ben. Because remember down here it said at the end of the day, Ben and Sophia made the same amount of balloons. So Sophia and Ben, their balloons were equal to each other. Now it says write the equation which belongs to each name below. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write that equation real quick. So we're going to write Sophia's equation. Now remember it said Sophia, it takes Sophia 4 minutes for each balloon and 10 minutes to set up. Now we haven't talked about slope yet, but I do want you to know that slope is just the constant rate of change. So remember last year you learned something that was called constant rate of change. Now this year we're going to be calling that slope, and it's going to be represented by the letter M. So anything that we find that's a rate of change, we're going to put an m on top of it. So what we got to do is in this first sentence, we got to determine which number is the rate of change and which one is not. And the easy thing is the rate of change is the one that's going to change most often. So let's think about it. If Sophia's making balloons, are her balloons going to increase more often, or is she going to have to set up that day more often? So which one is she going to do more of? Is she going to make a lot of balloons, or is she going to be setting up lots of times? So let's see, it takes Sophia 4 minutes for each balloon animal and 10 minutes to set up. She's only going to set up one time. That means that this is not the unit rate. Over here, it says that she's going to go ahead and spend 4 minutes making each balloon. That implies that she's going to make lots of balloons, right? She's not just going to make one balloon. She's going to make a lot of them. So since this number is going to change, and it says for each balloon, a lot of times it'll say per, each, every. We want to be looking for keywords like that. And let me go ahead and write that here. You're going to be looking for today for keywords like every, per, each, and so for instance, it might say so many balloons per minute, or so many balloons every hour, or so many balloons an hour. So anytime you see those keywords by it, you know that number is going to be your M. So I'm going to put an M on top. And that's going to be my rate of change, or what we call slope. This other number, that happens one time. So I'm going to put a note over here on the right hand side. I'm going to put happens one time. We're going to call that number our y-intercept, and I'm just going to put y-int, and that's going to be represented by the letter B. So this one, it changes more faster than the other one, right? Because we're making multiple balloons. That's my M. That's my slope, or my unit rate. And the one that only happens one time, I'm going to put a B on top of it. That's going to be my y-intercept. This is important because we need to know which one to use where. So when we write our equation for Sophia, we're going to write it in the form of M times X plus or minus B. Depends on if it's a positive or negative. For Ben, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to write his like M times X plus B. And so what we have to do is just figure out which one is the M. Now we've already done that for her, right? We said that 4 minutes for each balloon animal. That's going to be the M. That's the one that's changing. So with that being said, instead of writing the M right there, I'm going to go ahead and write the number, which is 4. So we have 4. And I'm just going to bring down my X. And then I'm going to bring down my plus B. Well, how many minutes did it take her to set up that one time? 10 minutes. So it's plus 10 minutes. Over here, for Ben, where's his M? Which one is going to change more often, the 3 or the 12? Well, it says it takes Ben 3 minutes for each balloon. So that's my M, it has that key word. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to read. And 12 minutes to set up. Well, he only sets up one time, so that's my B. So let's go ahead and use my numbers now. My M, the one that changes, is going to be 3. 3 minutes for each balloon. So then I'm going to bring down my X. And by the way, if you're wondering what that X represents, the X actually represents the balloon, right? If it's 3 minutes for each balloon, I can use this equation to figure out how much time he takes, because I can say in 3 minutes, if he made 2 balloons, if I replaced X with a 2, then this would turn into 6 minutes, right? We'd say, okay, if he did 2 balloons, it'd be 2 times 3. That'd be 6. If he did 10 balloons, we'd put a 10 for X, and 10 times 3 minutes, that'd give me 30 minutes to make 10 balloons, and so on. In case you're wondering, what does that stand for? So we have 3X, and then my B is the initial time it took for him to set up. That was 12 minutes. We have that right here, 12 minutes. And now we have our equation made. I'm going to box it. So, our equation for this, notice we had Sophia's equation over here. Her numbers were 4 and 10. All we did is replace the M with the 4, and replace our y-intercept with 10. And then for Ben, we went ahead and his numbers were 3 and 12. The 3 changes more frequently because that's every time he makes a balloon, and the 12 is just a one-time setup situation. So this may look a little confusing, but we're going to get some practice on this today, and it's going to make more sense to you, slope and y-intercept, when we actually start graphing these numbers. Because remember what I told you earlier? I said these two things right here, these are just 2 different graphs. And when it says that they're equal, and when it says at the end of the day, Ben and Sophia made the same amount of balloon animals, that just means that there's at some point in time at the end of the day, when they were finished, that these 2 lines crossed each other. And so we're not trying to solve it right now. We'll solve them later. But that's all this equation is saying. This will actually be able to let us see the point in time where they had the same amount. So let's go ahead and move this up now. Let's look at the next one. The next one is going to be an inequality. This one was an equation. We used an equal sign. This one's going to be an inequality. So on this one, it says Speedy Movers. So I'm going to underline that. I'm going to say that's a keyword. It's telling me who it is. Moving company charges $50. Okay, so they charge $50. We're going to box it. Notice I haven't seen any keyword yet. Plus, keyword, 40 cents a mile. Remember I told you to be looking for those keywords, each, every, a, and. So this says 40 cents a mile. That tells me right then that 40, that's going to be my M. And that one-time fee of $50, that's going to be my B. But we're going to keep reading. And it says for renting a moving truck. Make Your Money, moving company, charges $35 plus 60 cents a mile. For what number of miles is Make Your Move the less expensive company for renting a moving truck? Now notice it says less expensive. That means I'm going to have a less than sign. Now the first thing we want to do, right, we underline our keywords and we box our numbers. So now we want to go ahead and say which one's which. So I can tell you by looking at it, right, this one says 40 cents a mile. This one is going to change more frequently. That's my M. This 60 cents a mile is going to change frequently. That's a M. And then this one-time fee of $30, that's a B. And this one-time fee of $50 is a B. So I just went ahead and marked B's and M's, so I know what's going to go where. Then I'm going to go ahead and, since I've already boxed this and underlined keywords, I'm just going to write that information down. So we had Speedy Movers. I'm going to call Speedy Movers SM. So Speedy, we have Speedy Movers. And then we had Make Your Money, or Make Your Move, right? So we got MY. I'm going to call it MY. So Make Your Move. Now, let me look at the numbers for Speedy Movers. It says that they were 50 and 40 cents a mile. So then it was 0.40. Now, I've told you that we were saying the 40 cents per mile is an M. This 50 is my B, because it only happens one time, and then this one changes a lot because it depends on how many miles you drive. So we'd be multiplying this one to X to see what the total cost is. For the Make Your Move, we're looking at 60 cents a mile. So that 60 cents, let me write with my other pen, 60 cents. And then we had a one-time fee of $35. So this was my B for them, and this was my M for them. So I got my information written down. So step 2 is I'm going to create the equation using the names of the persons or object. Okay, well I want to use their names. So what it said down here in this last sentence, this is where we're going to determine what name we're going to write first. For what number of miles is Make Your Move? Okay, so that's Make Your Move. That's MY. Make Your Move. Less expensive. So he has to be less expensive. The less expensive company for moving. Well, it says the less expensive company, and that's out of 2 companies. The other company is SM. So that means SM must be more expensive. So SM is greater than Make Your Move. Or you could say Make Your Move is less than the Speedy Movers. So let's go ahead and write their equations now. So if we write their equations, what are the numbers for Make Your Move? Okay, well and remember we want to write it in this form, MX plus B, right, is less than MX plus B. So we know the numbers. The number for M over here is 40, let's see, for make your move is actually 60 cents. So I'm going to put 0.60, and then I'm going to put not an M, but I'm going to put an X. Because X is going to be the number of miles we have, right? You drive 10 miles, and you got to multiply it times the 60 cents to see how much you owe. Similar to like some of the things you did last year. Now, they did have an initial fee for make your move, and it was $35. So instead of plus B, I'm going to put plus that value that's represented as B, which is 35. So that's my B. I'm going to bring down my symbol. It is less than. And then this M for speedy movers, it's actually going to be, we look at it, 40 cents. So 0.40. I'm going to bring down my X, which is my variable, and my plus sign. And then my B for that one, the initial fee that we pay starting out is $50. Alright, now I have written an inequality.